Alright, thanks for joining me. This is the IS variants tier list video update thingy. Basically, if you see here, I did write out a change notes for this this latest update to the tier list, but I wanted to make a video so I could give you more information without typing for 7 years. Basically, there wasn't a whole lot that changed in this recent patch. There was a couple mech edition bug fixes, not a whole lot that would merit a tier list upgrade, except for that last week when I did it with the live stream, I got a bit sloppy. It was 6.5 hours, and I did a lot of mech. I put in a lot of mech builds that were there just for the quirks, and I put some mech builds higher than they deserve to be, and some lower than they deserve to be. And now a lot of that has kind of smoothed out. That's what I aim to do in this tier list, at least in this update. Alright, and so let's get started. So we're going to go basically down the change notes and then maybe compare them to what's in the tier list, and I'll just explain everything to you guys. Alright, first of all, I moved Dragon Slayer down to tier 2. Felt it wasn't in tier 1, it just wasn't working. The Banshee 3 and Stalker Misery are just so much better in Puggin these days. Got a chance of getting left behind by your team and Besem, but sorry, big engine stop meta. But like, it's not that huge of a risk, and the 3E and Stalker Misery are just so brutal these days. I also moved the Stalker 3 up down to tier 3. It's a great build for comp. The 4ER large lasers. Not great build for pugs though, because like, I mean, you can't guarantee that you're going to get that kind of engagement. Most of the time you're going to be engaging like 400 meters or so. You can't make use of those ER large lasers, you can't favorably trade. You're going to be kind of wrecked. I also moved the Stalker 4N up to tier 3 because it does excel at those kinds of ranges where you find in most pug games. Those 6 large lasers with the pretty nasty quirks for them too. And I also moved the Awesome 9M down to tier 4 because, I mean, you can put all the ERPVZ quirks on it that you want. It's not going to be that great, sorry. And also I changed builds on a few mechs. First of all was the Victor 9B. The old build had the AC-20 and 2 large pulses, and I replaced that with the chainsaw. You can check out more builds with the Victor 9B in my latest master guide for the Victor, also available on MetaMechs.com. But yeah, so this is the basic build. I feel like it suits the 9B better and is also better for the current pug play kind of stuff. I also changed the build on the 733C. This is just, I replaced, in the tier list live stream, I made a build with an AC-20, 2 large pulse, and some SRMs, but I don't think it's that good at pugs. I think the best build for pugs is still going to be the 2 UAC 5s and the 2 PPCs. So there's nothing really new there, I just reverted it. Then there's also Highlander 733. I changed it from a brawling build to an LRM build, 4 LRM 10s with Artemis. We can take a look at that real quick. It's just, I feel like it's just, that's what the Highlander 733 is good at, and there's no use in trying to fight that as much as I might want to. And then there's the Awesome-8 V. This time I kind of went the other direction. I took out the PPCs and put in large pulse lasers. I feel like the Awesome-8 Victor has always been the only one that's like really brawlable, except for the 9M, of course, with like pulse laser or whatever. But the Awesome-8 Victor, like, seriously try it out. Those SRMs, they converge really nicely. Lasers are basically firing from the same point. It's a pretty brutal build. Excuse me. And the Atlas RS. Now, it's not a great build, and that's why it's still in tier 4, but I think it's the best you can do. Gauss 4 large lasers. It's fucking closed beta shit right here. It is a real risk having that Gauss rifle in the side torso. Thank God I don't have an XL. But I do still think this is the best option for the RS at the moment, especially with the large laser quirks on the Atlas, sorry. I think I might have said awesome there. Alright, but that's pretty much it for assaults. And now we can move on to heavies. I moved the Cataphract 4X and the Ilya Muromets up to tier 2, because I feel like they're really shaping out, like especially in pug play where you want a lot of DPS, they're really shaping out to be pretty nice. The low mounts are a problem, and that's why they're still behind the Jaegermech, or both of the Jaegermechs actually. But I think that it is still kind of worth having them. I still think that if you get a good engagement, they can just destroy everything. And I also moved the Catapult K2 down to tier 3 because whether you're running Gauss or AC40, it's still like your chance of getting a good engagement with that are pretty low. And even if you do, you're going to get focused to hell anyways. So I really don't think it's that great at pugs. Tier 3 isn't bad though. I mean, that's average basically. And speaking of tier 3, the Thunderbolt 9 SE. Now this one, when I was doing my tier list update, or sorry, not my tier list update, my master guide on the Thunderbolt, also available on metamix.com. It really surprised me because I played it out with the builds I made for it, both the 4 large pulse lasers and the 2 large pulse, 3 mediums, and 2 SRM4s. And both builds were actually really friggin' fun and pretty brutal. Highly recommend that you try it out. I don't think it's tier 2 worthy, but I think tier 3 for sure belongs there. I moved the Orion K down to tier 4 and I changed its build. It's now just AC20 and 4 mediums going around 80 kph. That way I think it can tank better because it's got that extra speed, the extra torso twist, the extra maneuverability. And I just didn't feel like the SRM6s were really shaping out for it, unfortunately. I moved the Quickdraw 4G up to tier 4 from tier 5. I never really belonged to tier 5 because it wasn't bottom of the barrel, but it's still not that great. Like, in comp, sure, you can do 3 large lasers on it, but in pugs, that's not your best option. And I also changed a bunch of the builds. First off, let's start with the Protector. Let's take a look at this. 2 AC5s, dual large lasers. Pretty sick deeps at medium range, and I think it's definitely a pretty sweet heavy these days. It's tier 3. It's not that sweet, but it's decent enough. Firebrand, it was a really simple change. I just swapped an ER PPC for a regular PPC. Not even worth looking at. The Orion M though, that's an interesting one. If you look at the quirks. Let me just get the quirk page up real quick. Quirks for the Orion M. LB 10x cooldown 40%, but that means ballistic cooldown is at 20%, and SRM6 cooldown is at 20%. And you know what ballistic and SRM6? The AC20 is what I'm trying to get at. I put an AC20 in it. My words didn't really come out right. So I put an AC20 through SRM6s in it, and it's going 70 kph, and it's got 20% cooldown on all its weapons, and so it's just, I see this being nasty, especially after putting both cooldown modules in there. Not ready to move it out of tier 4 just yet, but I do think that it's potentially going to tier 3. It could even potentially be seen competitive play as a brawler, but I think the Orion VA, which is another one whose build I changed, is more likely to take its place as a brawler. Basically, the change I made in that was I got rid of the SRM6s with Artemis, and I replaced those with just regular SRM4s, no Artemis. I did that to get the boost in speed up to almost 75 kph, which I still don't think is fast enough, but I think it's fast to the point where like it can be useful. Like it can lead an engagement, it can tank some damage. And it can get in range to do some damage too. And we already went over the build I changed on the Orion K. Now for mediums, I added the Grey Death into tier 3. It's basically like a hybrid between the Shadowhawk 2D and the Dragon Flame. My dog's trying to eat cardboard. Anyways, basically, you could either think of it as adding a medium laser onto the 2D or adding jump jets onto the Dragon Flame. Either way, it's better than either of them. I really do think it's worthy of tier 3. God damn it. Maybe I'll edit that out, maybe I won't, who knows. Anyways, besides that, I moved the Wolverine 6K from tier 5 to tier 2 after the Magician made its case repeatedly and convincingly. Those large pulse lasers, they got some range on them. That right arm's got some fucking health on it. I think it's really worthy of tier 2. I also moved up the Hunchback 4P to tier 2 because it does have the short and the medium range poke viability, especially with those long or high mounts. And unfortunately I moved the Griffin 1N down to tier 3. Sorry, Adwala. But I don't think it's working out as tier 2. I think that just the existence of the Griffin 3M, as well as all those other tier 2 guys, make it so that it's just not worthy. And the Shadowhawk 5M and 2H are an interesting couple. Let's just look at the builds real quick, if I can find them. Alright, there's the 5M, there's the 2H. Now, it's basically the same build. 5M has an extra heatsink and jump jets, 2H has extra ammo, and the reason for that is that the 2H gets an AC5 cooldown quirk of, I believe, 10%, which just instantly makes it worth taking over the 5M in my opinion. Even if they run the same build, I think the Shadowhawk 2H just does it better, and I think it does it tier 2 better. You don't need to be pop-tarting with it. You can just fire those AC5s off like just over a ridge and then pop-tart when it suits you. I moved the Hunchback 4J up to tier 4. The build currently on it is 2 LRM-10s with Artemis, ER large laser, and a medium laser. I dropped a medium laser from the old build. Like, it's a super tiny change that I listed there. But you can also do it with 3 ER large lasers, and I think both of those are tier 4 builds for sure. And the final movement is Shadowhawk 2D2 up to tier 3 because of the new build I put on it. Let's look at it right now. This is a really fun build, AC10 and 4 SRM4s. Especially after you put the cooldown module on the SRM4s, they'll sync up pretty nicely with the AC10s. Not quite perfectly, but still pretty good. And we're talking sustained 7.27, maximum of almost 16 DPS on a medium mech. It is really range limited, but it is also really powerful. Unfortunately, it's not that fast. I mean, it's decent, and it has an XL, so like it is kind of a glass cannon, but it's a really cannon-y glass cannon, I would say. Already went over the Shadowhawk 2H and 4J build changes. Last one is the Trebuchet 7M. I had to make it a Lerm boat, just because those quirks for Lerms are amazing, and I actually got to play it, and I was like, oh my god, this is so terrible. But, like, terrible in the way where, like, it's fucking powerful as hell. But yeah, it's a really, really strong mech. I wish that it had SRM6 quirks, but it doesn't. And so yeah, that's the build that it has. Sorry. Alright, and on to lights. The Locust Pirate's Bane. I kinda like the idea of this mech. It is nice to have another ECM in the game, but this is not the sort of ECM like a Spider 5D where you can be running around in the enemy team just trying to disrupt them. This is the kind of ECM where you have to kinda stay back and make sure that you don't get shot at because it's on a freaking Locust. But build 4 medium lasers, 2 machine guns. Unfortunately, I could not do Pharaoh. I was 1 slot short, as you see there. But that also means that I had to drop the engine to a 180 instead of a 190. Ugh. But all in all, I think it's a pretty solid Locust. One of the best Locusts, if not the best, because of that ECM. But yeah, it's decent. And for changes inside of the light tier list, we have the Ember down and the Firestarter A up to tier 2 and tier 1 respectively. I think they have very similar roles, although the Ember does have a bit more of that medium range stuff, or not even medium range, but not so short range stuff going on. But the Firestarter 9A is just tearing shit up at short range like the Ember cannot do. Maybe it used to, but it doesn't do it anymore, not as good. I also moved the Jenner F and Oxide down to tier 2 just because they're not like super gods and pugs. I'm worried that the Firestarter 9A isn't at that point either. I might have to move that down to tier 2 maybe next update. but the H is definitely tier 1 worthy. It's just because it'll always be useful in a team comp. I moved the Spider 5D and the Jenner 7D down to tier 3 because they couldn't compete with the new mechs in tier 2. I think they're pretty overwhelmingly average mechs, which is what tier 3 is for. And I also moved up the Locust 1E and the Locust 1V to tier 4. Locust 1E I gave medium lasers instead of the small laser build that I had before because of quirks. I think the medium lasers are just better. Whatever. And the 1V, those are your large. That your large quirk means that you might not even have to get to the point where the enemy mechs can even see you to do damage, so I guess that's a nice little plus there. And finally I moved the Anansi Spider down to tier 5 because it's a joke. And I also changed the build on the Firestarter K. I gave it medium lasers instead of small lasers, just because small lasers were really underwhelming to me. Like, they did have actually decent range for small lasers, but they're small lasers. It wasn't a huge alpha. DPS was only meh. I think having medium lasers is still worth it on that build over smalls. Anyways, I think that's about it for this update. I guess another change that you can take into account. Oh yeah, there is some minor restructuring I did. First of all, I reformatted it, like, just fucking compare these two, like, look at that, that's all bleh, there's no bold, there's no headers. Oh my god, look at that, look at those, look at headings, and bold stuff, and italics. Yeah, that was really exciting, wasn't it? But I also made it so that the old system was that everything was ordered from low tonnage to high tonnage, and then alphabetically after that. That was the way the PGI did it, so that's the way I did it, because I was just basically doing my version of their list. But now I kind of making it my own. I've ordered it kind of according to where I think they belong within that tier. It's not perfect, but I think it's a much better indication of where I think mechs are standing at right now. And that should be it for the IS variance tier list. I'm also doing one of these video updates for the competitive tier list, which I also updated today. And so you can go ahead and check that out over there. But until then, see ya.